In 1971, the Dallas Cowboys finally won the Super Bowl after years of failure and heartbreaking losses. Tom Landry's offense was spectacular in that game. They dominated on the ground and in the air.
As he finds the open spot in the Miami zone.
Staubach finished off his legendary season as the MVP of the Super Bowl. The Dolphins' passing attack was coordinated by the legendary Howard Schnellenberger.
The 1983 football season brought the University of Miami its first national championship.
Howard was not only a legendary NFL coach, but he also coached Miami in the 80s and helped turn the university into a storied program in college football.
For doing in 5 years what a lot of people thought couldn't be done ever.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska. And for Miami, an absolutely miracle year. The dream season as they come back from a bad loss opening day.
But before we go into the game, we have to go back to the days when a college giant walked the sidelines of Alabama Stadium.
Samples go down at that right tackle point. Okay, can we get together?
In 1957, Bryant returned to his alma mater, Alabama. He signed a 10-year coaching contract.
And if we do that as a team, 11 at a time, 4 years from now, we'll be walking out of here the national champion. And I'll tell you this, I expect nothing less.
Bill was always searching for new and innovative ways to evolve college football. Howard Schnellenberger, a talented offensive coach, was a huge part of their evolution. Bryant was ahead of his time in the world of college football. In college, during the 50s, most offenses were aggressive down the field.
Columbus, Ohio, the score is 3-0 favor of Ohio State when Doyle's pass is intercepted by Ray Kleckler, a visiting Southern Methodist.
They played a lot of 9 routes and deep post concepts.
This one is a long one and a spectacular catch by Watson.
Bear, always ahead of the game, devised a game plan that was totally non-existent in college during the 50s and early 60s. He went to Schnellenberger and proposed an idea. He wanted the quarterback to throw the ball in under 2 seconds. That was totally the opposite of what was going on in the nation at the time.
Johnny Champion holds it in and
Bear already had 3 selected plays: an out, the hook, and the deep slant. In other words, timing routes. No one was doing this at the time. I mean, no one. First of all, you needed a receiver who knew how to run routes. Secondly, you needed a quarterback who was accurate with the ball in his hands. Bear trusted Schnellenberger to find him an accurate passer. He found the legendary Joe Broadway Namath. In 1961, Namath in that passing game torched defenses all year long. Most defenses played 3-man deep, but what Bear would do is throw these quick passes to his wide receivers underneath the deep safeties. Because the linebackers couldn't check the receivers and the safeties were too deep, they methodically moved down the field for a touchdown. Alabama, led by Namath, had a perfect record and won the national championship that year. Now, keep in mind that this process took some time to evolve. At first, the receivers were running 2 steps in and out of their routes. The ball wasn't getting there in time. So Bear and Schnellenberger increased the steps to eventually 10. They eventually were throwing 10-yard outs and hooks in under 2 seconds. This concept was successful and was decades ahead of its time. Schnellenberger left Alabama in early 1966 to take a job in the NFL as a receivers coach for the Los Angeles Rams under George Allen. He was in charge of the passing game. Schnellenberger took those quick timing routes that he and Bear did in Alabama and completely revolutionized it with the Rams. When Schnellenberger first arrived with the Rams, Schnellenberger realized that the Rams receivers ran their routes way too deep right into linebacker coverage in the middle of the field. So what Schnellenberger did was cut the receivers' routes to 4 seconds. So unlike he did with Namath in college, he had the Rams quarterback to drop back 7 yards and then plant. It took a total of 3 seconds to complete the drop back. Schnellenberger and the Rams staff eventually watched film on every quarterback in the NFL and broke down their step backs to 1/10 of a second. He realized that if a receiver ran a 10-yard out, they broke out of their routes in 2 seconds. Schnellenberger timed every wide receiver's routes in the league and broke them down to their lowest number. 5-yard routes were 1.5 seconds. 10-yard routes were 2 seconds. And 15-yard routes were 2.5 seconds.
Gabe calls the turnout pattern, and his pass is taken at the sideline by Bernie Casey.
I mean, this was brilliant observation here. This was some high-level attention to detail. You gotta understand, the Rams' offense was centered around timing routes. Gabriel was just 4th in the league in interceptions. He was 7th in passer rating. The numbers clearly shows that Schnellenberger had took the Alabama concept to the pros and was successful. In 1970, Schnellenberger was hired by the Miami Dolphins as their offensive coordinator.
Howard, you came from a winner of the Los Angeles Rams, a contender, to a loser, a tail end of the Miami Dolphins. I know the fans want to ask why.
Well, it's really not so surprising.
How do you feel about your chances of making the ball club now?
Well, judging from what Dallas has got coming back and the defensive backs, the opportunity lies in the one defensive back position. I feel that if I can do an adequate job at defensive back, that my chances are real good.
As the high safety in the flex defense, Harris' job was to speculate where an opponent was going to be. Oftentimes, he counted in his head steps before the play had even started. Harris was obsessed with watching film and studying offensive keys. Landry wanted intelligent players, so the Cowboys had this huge encyclopedia that had every team's tendencies in the league, what they liked to do on third downs, or what their tendencies was in a certain formation. Harris would study these huge books for hours on into the wee hours of the night. My job was to understand quarterbacks, not only the percentages of where they threw and how they threw, but how they thought and how their psychology was, how you beat them mentally, how do you understand them as a person, what are they really after?
I guess what you're saying in effect is when he rolls, you pretty well know which side he's going to throw the ball.
Well, naturally, it'll be stronger to the side he rolls to. Actually, it's a half roll. But the side he rolls to, he'll be stronger there in that area and weaker back on the weak side. So we'll know more where to play.
Alright, so in this next phase of the video, I'm going to break down how Cliff Harris absolutely dominated this game from the safety position and helped Mel Renfro take out one of the most legendary receivers in postseason history, Paul Warfield. The second play of the game shows Dallas in man coverage. Green is following Warfield in motion, indicating this. Dallas is in a heavy box formation. Harris, the free safety, is playing single high concept in the middle of the field over Renfro and Warfield, forming a cover one defense. Landry is utilizing Harris in a concept called middle field closed to defend against the middle field routes. Miami's motioning of Warfield and running an outside zone play was a strategic move by Shula to test Harris's aggression and reactions for opening up the middle of the field. I'll prove it to you. Notice how Miami sends Warfield in motion and runs an outside zone run on Warfield's side of the field, which was the right side. The formation was called a red formation or splits back concept. It was a chess move for Miami. Shula is testing Harris, the young free safety. Notice how Harris was aggressive and came down to support the run on the side where the motion was played on. That's exactly what Shula wanted to see. It's all a setup. How aggressive is Harris? I can almost guarantee that Harris studied film and saw that Miami runs out of motion plays a lot. That's why he was so aggressive on that play. And I'm also certain that Shula was aware that Harris knew that as well, because on one of the first passes of the game for Miami, they went back to that red formation. Notice how Dallas is still in that cover one defense. Instead of running the ball like they did earlier, Miami tried Harris inside with Paul Warfield. Now, make no mistake about it, Miami on this play was targeting Harris again. Anytime you throw into the middle of a closed field, you are targeting that middle safety. That's basic schematic knowledge. Eventually, you're saying that you don't respect the free safety. Now watch this. Harris comes up on the pass to Warfield and sets the tone immediately. If you slow it down, you see Warfield looking at Harris as the ball is coming in. In this play, Warfield is more worried about Harris than he was about Renfro. From that moment on, Warfield and Greasy knew not to throw inside routes unless they wanted utter punishment. Miami did kind of confirm this because on the next two passes, they threw a hitch route to Howard Twilley and a go route to Paul Warfield. Both routes are designed specifically for cover one defenses. On their fifth pass, they tried to go back over the middle to Warfield, and guess who was there again? Cliff Harris.
Greasy.
Now watch what happens. He did it again. He saw Harris coming and dropped another pass. And this is where you can actually hear the commenter say, it's the play that President Nixon suggested that Miami run.
This is just about the play that President Nixon suggested that the Dolphins run. A down and in to Paul Warfield.
A down and in to Paul Warfield. Who was there so far every time they did that play? The analytical maniac, Cliff Harris. So what do we have so far? Out of 5 passes so far, they attacked the middle of the field twice, but were unsuccessful because of Harris. On Warfield's second reception, which was the 9th pass of the game, he throws again in the middle of the field, and Harris is there again, but Warfield makes a great catch.
Inside the 20.
One of his best catches of the afternoon. Now, that's 9 passes, and 3 of them went over the middle. Harris was involved in all of them so far. Also notice how at times Landry used Green and Harris to shadow Warfield. This had to be frustrating on Warfield. You now had one of the most freakish defensive backs in NFL history shadowing you as well. This was one of the privileges of having Green on your team. Keep in mind that Landry moved him to the safety slot in 1970, but before that he was one of the greatest cornerbacks in NFL history for 6 seasons.
Cornell Green steps in front of Bobby Crispino, and that is that.
The first freak of nature on the defensive side of the ball and the secondary in NFL history. To have that much flex on your defense was amazing because he frustrated Warfield with different kind of coverage packages all game long. Sometimes Emil Renfro was on him, sometimes Green covered him, while other times Harris shadowed him from the secondary. Landry had one major focus: stop Paul Warfield. Watch this. If you notice, Cornell Green is following Warfield on a motion play. Warfield runs a post route in the middle of the field. Green does a masterful job at batting the pass down.
Fine defensive effort keeping the ball away from Warfield by Cornell Green.
But if you notice, Harris is right there in the middle defending his territory, even with Green there. Now, what do we have? That's 10 or 11 passes so far, and 4 of them went over the middle. Harris was there on all of them. Warfield did run other routes outside of those in routes like I said before, but Renfro and the rest of the Cowboys secondary was all over it. In Greasy's 11th or 12th pass, he throws again to Warfield in the middle of the field. However, this time he throws it in underzone coverage, which is in Jordan's territory. But if you notice, Harris was once again right there in the middle of the field. I mean, this guy was like a stalker. He just didn't let up. Every play so far that went over the middle, Harris is right there waiting. Remember, a cover 1 defense is basically a run support formation. Miami had the #1 rushing attack in football. They were averaging over 173 yards per game. So Landry went to the cover 1 defense to stop the Dolphins' rushing attack, and he used Harris to patrol the middle defending any inside route or deep inside passes. And it worked flawlessly. Greasy only had 3 completed passes over the middle all game, while running backs like Larry Zonka and Jim Kick had 80 yards combined. Remember that Miami rushing attack averaged the league leading 173 yards per game, and to put up only 80 yards, that's a massacre.
Zonka fumble.
Greasy had a horrible game. He had a sack, 1 interception, and that Cowboys defense kept the second best quarterback in passer rating to a horrible 51%. Greasy came into the Super Bowl completing 55% of his passes, yet Dallas held him to just 50%. Greasy only passed for 134 yards. His wide receivers Paul Warfield and Howard Twilley had 5 combined catches. This was hands down one of the most impressive Super Bowl wins in NFL history. Landry finally got over the hump and won the Super Bowl. And outside of the Steelers, the Cowboys became the most dominant team of the 70s and eventually was coined as America's team. But that title probably would not have come to be if it weren't for a football analytical genius named Cliff Harris and a president's plot against the Dallas Cowboys. Until next time, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.